cover as much of the panel as possible, but it's implied in Wano that if you turn your blade black, it will actually go up a rank in the grading system. And since it takes a lot of time and effort to turn a blade into a black blade, you're probably not going to do that with just some run-of-the-mill sword. So you're going to be starting with at least a fine grade sword, meaning that it'll jump up to either an excellent or a supreme grade once it actually turns black. Shusui is actually a really good example of this. So Shusui would have started as a fine grade sword, and then once it turned black, it became an excellent grade sword.
You see, I would believe that if Oda never fucked up your logic, because by that logic, all these blades up here, with the exception of Yoru, would be black blade. So what's the argument for these guys? The way how I personally think of it, I guess it has to be the craftsmanship and whoever is making these fucking swords. Because ultimately, he made it very known that there are specific grades of blade, meaning that they themselves was never at level 1 grade. They were made in that specific grade. Because for as you see here, he said, I crafted my magnum opus. When I was still young, the temperament of the sword was something else. You'd get the chills just holding it. I named the blade after the Lord of the Underworld, the King of Hell, Enma. That doesn't sound like Enma was starting off as a skillful blade. It started off like it was already a great blade, and I personally truly believed it. Because the same guy who made Enma is also the same guy who made the Wado Ichimonji, which is why it's also a great blade. Like, I don't think these were just coincidence. Even when we look back at the Kitetsu was made each rank, the Sandai being a skill blade, Nidai being a great blade, and the Shodai being a supreme blade. I don't think those were coincidence. I think they traditionally made those blades. I think they intentionally made those blades at that specific grade. Because the same dude right over here, which we find out to know he's one of the Kozuki family and a craftsman, he made the Habano Hibakiri. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And he also was the one that made the Sandai. And then his ancestors, the Kozuki ancestors, Kometsu, I think his name, was the one that made the Nidai. And no one knows who made the Shodai, but we all know each of these guys made the blade in specific grade. So ultimately, it's not that I can't see your logic. I think your logic is 100% great. But the way how Oda writes it is either he's not keeping up with the Metos, or he completely retconned that whole shit right there. But I don't think he retconned it, because even in that same scan that you quoted out with Toshigi, she notified that these blades was like at that same rank, more likely implying that these was already out of the rank. And then if that was a case where every black blade will be a supreme grade blade, then how is Shusui not a supreme blade? The way how I personally feel like it, they can go up in rank when they hit black blade, but it's more like they go up in rank in terms of like where they're at. So Shusui goes up in rank because it's a black blade, meaning that it's not a supreme grade blade. It's more like it's the greatest blade within the great blade, since it's the only blade in that category that is a black blade. Which means, hypothetically, if Zoro was supposed to make Enma a black blade, it would not go up in rank to a supreme grade blade. It would just go up in rank as the highest great blade there is, next to Shusui. And the same thing goes for Wado Ichimonji. If he had the Nidai Kitetsu, the same thing goes for the Nidai Kitetsu. But if this makes people feel better, I think a black blade in the great blade section should be just as powerful as a regular sword in the supreme grade. Which means that I personally think that Shusui should be as great as like a Shodai Kitetsu. That's how I personally feel like it. But if the Shodai is a black blade, then it's obviously going to be greater than anything else, because it's already at its highest as a supreme grade. Going above and beyond that as a black blade, you're already up the ante. Does that make sense? Like that to me makes more sense in terms of the rank system of these great blades. But hey, we just gotta wait it out and see what's gonna happen, because we're at the final saga. One Piece is shortly coming to an end. We gonna need to know more about these swords. But I hope this clarifies, or I hope this gives you more insight on how I think of it.